After reviewing the first two watches from this Korean micro brand, many, including myself, were anticipating the release of their third model, the Pitzmann III. What I wasn't expecting was this, because at arm's length, this could easily pass as a platinum Rolex Daytona, or even a Zenith variant, as it seems to have very similar DNA. But this thing here, as you delve into the details, the case shape, the fine nuances, you quickly realise that it's actually a really well built sports chronograph, and it offers some unique features associated to this brand style. But in saying that, I've also got a question. Is it different enough from Rolex, or is it just another knockoff design? Let's check it out. Now I find this watch extremely interesting because I've had the platinum Rolex Daytona in my studio in my hand for several days because I was commissioned to photograph that watch and do a video for Fabio from Time Only a while back. And I gotta tell you, that's a lot of watch. It's heavy. No, it's very heavy, it's solid, it's well built, and it follows the classic design elements of modern Daytona but dialed up to 11. Now, for many enthusiasts, the probability of purchasing any variant of the Daytona at retail at an authorized dealer is, well, let me put it this way, the odds are better of winning the lotto, unless you have deep pockets and are prepared to play the game. Now, the reason I've appealed to the platinum version of the Daytona is because, as I mentioned, at arm's length, this blue Pitzmann III looks so similar to that watch. And that's a good thing, but it's also a very bad thing at the same time. And now you're probably thinking, Pete, what are you talking about? How can it be good and bad? Well, let me explain. It's a good thing because imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. And I can tell you, although it's pretty similar, this watch is also very different in so many ways. Now, it's also a bad thing because many people, especially in London or California, recently have been mugged or even killed for wearing expensive looking watches on the street. And this could easily pass as a very expensive looking platinum Daytona on the wrist. And I can tell you, a thief or thieves, they're not going to stop and check out the watch's detail, the branding, the fine nuances, before they attempt to murder you. So in that regard, it is a bad thing. And guys, the reason I'm saying that is because there was a case in which a young man was killed a few months back. He was wearing a fake watch on his wrist. It wasn't even the real model, it was a replica, and I hate replicas and fakes. Now, the fact that he was killed for wearing an expensive looking fake on his wrist, that breaks my heart on so many levels. So my thoughts on that are don't buy fake watches, period. Now, this is far from being a fake watch or a copy of any famous watches. However, be aware, because of its look, it will draw attention to your wrist to many roving eyes. Because I've had this watch on the wrist for a week and it's exactly what I've experienced. And I live in a good, safe area. Enough said, you saw the pop-up. Pitzmann has sponsored this video. I don't have to send this watch back. And after spending a week on the wrist, I'm going to tell you what my experience has been, as well as where I think this watch could find room for improvement. Firstly, let's get stuck into the specs. I measure a case diameter of 40mm with a bezel of 40.9. That lug-to-lug is 47.4 and a case height of 13.3. Now, the crown is 5.7mm, it is signed, the watch offers 50 meters of water resistance, and the total weight on this bracelet, sized to my 18cm wrist, comes in at exactly 155 grams. Now, for a 40mm watch or 41mm bezel, it's actually sitting great on my wrist. The lug-to-lug's not an issue, that height has been great. For an automatic chronograph, that height has been a pleasure, and that comfort on that bracelet, again, I found a good sweet spot, it's been ideal. And one of the first things that I noticed of this watch when I received it was that case shape. You see, that is exactly the same case as a Pitzmann II. And I've got a Pitzmann II here. So as you can see, this is the Korean influence. Look at those lugs. If you look at the overhead, look at those lugs, the way that they taper outwards, and I spoke about that. I spoke about that in the video of the Pitzmann II. It's basically the same case. The main difference, you've got a chronograph in here, it's slightly thicker, this is thinner, as you can see, for a sports watch. So I think keeping in style and utilizing the same style case is pretty intelligent here. But not only that, even these bracelets, they're exactly the same. I can't physically see any differences. So I like what Pitzmann has done. They've incorporated the case shape as you can see, and the same bracelet, created a chronograph, but as I mentioned, it's very polarizing until you get in closer and look at those details. Now, since we're on that bracelet, as you can see, it folds straight down. It's got solid links, screw pins, a fully milled swivel. It's got a twin deployment trigger to release, and the clasp is signed. The quality is very good. The fact that it's got half links is also very good, albeit there is no micro adjustability here. Now, getting in close and personal to that dial, you can see the details. You can see the red accents, the 3 subdials. You got a nicely framed 8 at the 6, and with the addition of that skeletonized handset, you can actually read those dials pretty much everywhere. That's been a big plus. And the heart of this watch, or the movement, is Seiko's caliber 8R48, or as some know it, the NE88. It's got about 45 hours power reserve. It's an automatic, self-winding movement. This particular one has been rock solid and it's been extremely accurate, so there's been no complaints in that department for me. Now, unlike the Pitzmann II, which offered a single dome sapphire crystal, this watch offers a flat sapphire, and for me it's doing a much better job. It's got blue AR, the legibility has been very good, and because there's no distortion, I actually enjoy the look of this dial a lot more through this crystal than their previous version, which had that single dome. And again, drawing my attention back to that dial, you can see lume plots on that handset as well as those markers. So what is that lume like? Well, it's got superluminova, and when I shine my UV light on this watch, the lume glows blue. But when I turn off the lights, you got a nice clean green glow. It seems to be evenly applied, but its strength, well, it's not a dive watch, it's a chronograph, so I'm happy to forgive that. And lastly, before I get on to any gripes, the price. The watch comes in at $12.99 US, listed on their website. There are a couple of different color variants. There's a blue, I believe there's also a white. So feel free to check them out. And the price of $12.99 for an automatic chronograph with bracelet, with this detailed level of finishing, I think they've done pretty well. And on that note, what are my room for improvements or any potential gripes? Well, the elephant in the room, that polarizing look. When you're not close enough to see the finer details, you're really going to think you've got a platinum Daytona on your wrist. Some people might get put off by that, but whatever the case, whether a major brand or a micro brand, many companies do take inspiration from each other. And in this case, it seems to have borrowed a lot of DNA from that Rolex, and that's something you can't look past. Second room for improvement, that bracelet's been nice, however, there is no micro adjustability. I think we've all come to expect a toolless micro adjustment in clasps on micro brands these days, so here it would have been nice to offer it. It's not a deal breaker, but it just would have been nice, and as I mentioned, having those half links, I've managed to find a good sweet spot, but being sport for choice, a on-the-fly adjustment would have been just great. Next room for improvement for me is that date wheel. I like the fact that it's framed, I like that it's got a beautiful surround, however, that framing also can cast some shadows when reading double digits on that date, so be aware of that. And probably my last gripe or my last niggle, and this is a personal thing, that crown, I would have preferred it just that little bit bigger. But again, it's not dissimilar from the Pitzmann II. I don't like that crown. Personally, I think it lets the watch down in the feel experience, because everything else, as far as the pushes, they've been great. They've been really tactile. That crown, though, it doesn't have that same feel. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. That's my take on the brand new Pitzmann III. It's a lovely looking watch, albeit it does have strong resemblance and strong DNA to Rolex, to Zenith. I think if you can get past that, you've got a really well built, really well finished watch. And as I mentioned at the beginning of the video, the probability of any of us getting a Rolex Platinum Daytona or a Daytona from any authorized dealer without playing the game of spending so much money in shop to get your name potentially moved up a theoretical list, well, this is a very inexpensive alternative and will probably satisfy that itch for many people without really digging deep into those back pockets. So thanks for watching, guys. Hit me up in the comment section, let me know what you think of this watch. Enjoy the watch that's currently on your wrist, enjoy the hobby, enjoy each other, and we'll see you in the next one.